Hello and welcome to today's webcast. I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, Senior Executive Editor at Penton Technology and moderator for today's event. We've got a really great event on tap today with some excellent information. But first, of course, we need to go over a few housekeeping items. So first, on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a toolbar with some icons. These icons allow you to do certain things. So, for example, if you need to adjust your volume, just click on the click on the media player icon, and then when you're done, just click on it again to hide the media player window. And we invite you to get social. This webinar allows you to take full advantage of social networking. If at any time during our session today you hear something interesting, feel free to tweet it out to your followers, and your tweet will automatically contain a URL to the event. And feel free to customize your webcast console. You can move windows around by dragging on the title bar, or resize your windows by clicking on the lower right corner of any window. If at any time you experience audio difficulties or advancing the slides, simply press what I call the magic F5 key to refresh your webinar console. And finally, I would like to encourage all of you to ask questions at any time during the webcast. Simply type your question into the box on the bottom of your screen. We're going to be addressing as many questions as we can during the webcast, so don't wait to send in your question. Okay, let's get on to today's webcast. More than Dropbox, 5 unique file sync deployments for the modern workplace. Again, I'm Charlene O'Hanlon. I'm the moderator for today's event and Senior Executive Editor at Penton Technology. So today we're going to look at the file sync and share space, which has really taken off in the consumer space. But as in most things, that what works well in the consumer space doesn't always translate well in the business environment. With that in mind, we're going to take a look at some of the drawbacks of using consumer-grade file sync services for business-grade applications. And we're going to take a look at some of the market trends surrounding the sync and share space. We'll also hear about some ways in which Nology, a technology solutions provider and eFolder partner, has used file sync services to help solve its customer issues. And of course, we'll be answering the questions you have throughout. Before we get to our discussion, however, we do have a polling question. Here it is on the screen now. Please make your selection, and in a few seconds we'll take a look at the results. The question is, which consumer-grade file sync solutions are your customers using? We have Apple Cloud, Dropbox, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and SugarSync. I'll give you a few seconds here to make your decisions, and then we'll take a look at the results. Okay. Looking at the results, looks like Dropbox is the clear winner here. 60%, almost 61% of users using Dropbox, which is kind of disconcerting actually. Microsoft OneDrive comes in second at almost 27%. Google Drive is also faring pretty well out there, and Apple iCloud doesn't, almost not even ranking among the users. Okay, great. So today we have Today we have two speakers who are well-versed in the file sync space. We have Ted Hulsy, who's VP of Marketing at eFolder, and he's returned to offer his insights. And we have Brendon Liner, who's Cloud Integration Specialist at Nology Networks. And he's going to offer up some case studies. So welcome to you both.
Great to be here.
Great.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great, great. So, Brendon, maybe before we get started, you can tell us a little bit about Nology Networks.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Brendon, and I'm the president at Nology Networks. We're a Minneapolis-based cloud service provider and managed service provider, so providing everything from managing on-site infrastructure and running a full-service help desk to virtual infrastructure, including virtual servers, desktops, hosted applications, and of course our file storage product, which we call NDrive, which is the eFolder product that you're going to learn about today, and how we use that in our business. So we serve clients. Most of our clients are in the Midwest, but we do serve clients across the United States as well as clients internationally with our cloud services and our products. And the majority of our clients fall into regulated industries, so healthcare, financial services, professional services firms. things like that. Currently, we're supporting probably about 1,300 end users, and a lot of those end users are using the eFolder product as well.
Great, great. Thanks, Brendon. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these market trends here. To both of you, I know the file sync space has been kind of growing both in popularity and number of players. I was wondering if maybe Ted, you can give us some insight into some of these key market trends here.
Yeah, I mean, I think when we look at the market today, I mean, I think what's undeniable is that consumer-grade file sync technology has captured the imagination of consumers, right? And you know, Dropbox is advertising the fact that they have over 300 million users. And so very clearly, this sort of technology has caught fire, and consumers are very familiar with how to share large files, sync content between PCs, Macs, and mobile devices, smartphones, tablets, iPads, and the like. And you know, it's really a whole new paradigm in terms of how you know, consumers use technology to share content. And you know, I think in the middle of the slide here, we're, you know, in the workplace today, users are bringing their own devices into the workplace, the so-called BYOD phenomenon. People are using smartphones and tablets for lightweight computing, for staying connected with their content and their email on the go, and more even crafting and editing content on mobile devices. And so you have this proliferation of devices, and this is a growing challenge for managed service providers and solution providers. And then kind of in the upper right-hand corner is a recent study we noted where, you know, half of all users of file sync technology, you know, claim that their productivity has significantly increased. So these are all the big trends that are occurring with file sync technology, but the big challenge is, to a large degree, consumers are bringing consumer-grade technology into the workplace. And I think that poses a whole host of different security and data leakage challenges.
Yeah, so we've got on the next slide here, we've got really some of the challenges and problems that can be caused by consumer-grade file sync services in the business environment. So you mentioned security. What are some of the other kind of major hiccups there when we're talking about consumer into business?
Well, I think at some level, when you allow users at your clients to compute on devices that are not corporate controlled, and then use software applications that sync corporate content from corporate issued devices to unauthorized devices, you really lose control of a company's content and their data and their privacy. And you know, I would submit that, you know, any MSP that's letting this occur in your client base, you've got a major challenge, and you're really not doing justice to your clients in terms of one of your first kind of orders of business, which is safeguarding the privacy and security of their data. You know, so what ends up happening if you allow Dropbox to be, consumer-grade Dropbox to be used in the workplace, is you don't know where your content lives, you don't know where it's being shared, you don't know whether sensitive corporate communications or content has been leaked. You don't know whether it resides on uncontrolled devices, home PCs, and we hear about these situations all the time where an employee is either laid off or terminated, and the MSP goes to reclaim the PC, and they discover that the machine the person was using had consumer-grade Dropbox on it, that they've been syncing a whole bunch of work content off-site to another PC, and then lo and behold, the employee stops returning phone calls. And then what do you do? And then, you know, what, you know, is there's certainly egg on your face as an MSP if you let that occur, or maybe the IT department if they were in control of the situation. But in any event, it's an unacceptable situation in our view. We just can't let this happen. And so there is an alternative, which is going in and improving the security at your clients, using the many tools, security tools at your disposal, like gateway firewalls, next generation firewalls, network security technologies like OpenDNS to really block and prevent the use of these consumer-grade file sync technologies, and then to put in place a business-grade alternative. That's really the key. It's really a one-two punch. You can't just simply lock down and prevent users from trying to be productive. You have to do it in a safe and secure way.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. And one of the things that's listed on this chart here, or this bullet list here, but you didn't actually bring up, was the industry regulations and compliance measures. And I imagine that's actually becoming more and more of an issue as so many companies are using cloud services, and they've got to make sure that the data that they are saving in the cloud does meet those compliancy regulations. And Brendon, I'd like to bring you into the conversation here. I'm wondering if this issue of compliancy is something that you've actually kind of come up against with your customers.
Absolutely, and thanks for bringing that up. I was actually going to chime in there in a second. I'm going to go in a little more detail in a case study down the road, but being in Minnesota, sort of we've been in the land of the news for data breaches lately with Target Corporation, which is based here, and Super Value Corporation, which owns a lot of supermarkets nationwide, and some big Fortune 500s here in Minneapolis and the Twin Cities that have been breached, some of our healthcare systems, and so we're kind of at the forefront of it. And one of my clients, like I said, I'll talk about more in a minute, but a mortgage company, they were in the exact position that was just being discussed of using Dropbox. And their individual mortgage brokers were using individual Dropbox accounts for their storage, but yet these were not independent employees or 1099. They were actually employees of the mortgage company. And one of those issues that was discussed actually did happen. An employee was let go. It was they took the laptop with them. There was no insight into how much data they potentially had, how little data they had. There was no audit trails as to what types of data they had or what they were accessing within the systems. Were they accessing files that weren't part of mortgages they were underwriting? There was really no insight into that, and there was no way to protect the data and keep those employees from taking that data with them to a competitor, or just potentially having it in a vehicle that gets broken into, and then you have client social security numbers and bank statements and W-2s and things like that that are now at risk. So I'll talk a little bit more in the case study about how Anchor solved the problem, but we see it all the time with industries, banking, financial services that have all of these compliance regulations, and because their technology is lacking, the employees go out on their own and say, well, I need a file sync solution, so they go out and get Dropbox or OneDrive or Google Drive and start using it because it's going to help them with their work, but they don't think about the repercussions for the business, and the business typically isn't doing anything to prevent them from doing that.
I see. Okay. Well, that makes sense. So then, I guess what's on this this statement pretty much says it all. Then it's you can't fit a square peg in a round hole, basically, when it comes to file sync, because there's just too many ways that it could damage your business and your business's reputation in the long run. So, okay, great. So let's take a look a bit about the channel's role then in determining the best file sync solution for their customers, and really the best way to utilize technology to meet their customer needs. So I'd like to actually throw this out to both Brendon and Ted to kind of get your take on it. And Brendon, as a solution provider, I'd really like to hear whether these statements are correct and how much of an impact these things actually do have on the final decision.
Well, the impact is huge, because I think that as an MSP and as a cloud service provider, it's our job to consult on everything from A to Z when it comes to technology from within the businesses that we're serving. So as I kind of hinted to a minute ago, part of the problem that we see is that businesses don't have good file sync and file sharing and collaboration tools. They're using a traditional file server type of environment, and so the marketing department goes out and makes a decision on their own to start using Dropbox, and then the finance department makes a decision on their own to start using Google Drive, and there's really no internal controls, and there's nothing kind of guiding the overall principles of this collaboration. And so as MSPs, it really puts us in a position to really understand these things and build a solution that is going to span all the different departments and all the different disciplines within our clients' industries. And I think that regulatory and compliance are probably the biggest things that we're experiencing all the time. I mean, with all these data breaches, people are so afraid of where is my data, and I'm sure that we'll get into this more with the eFolder solutions, but being able to have a SaaS-hosted model and also being able to have a self-hosted model that you as an MSP can really work to meet your clients' compliance and regulatory requirements, whether they're a bank or healthcare. We have some healthcare clients and finance clients using the Anchor eFolder system, and collaboration. I'm going to talk in a minute about one of the case studies and really talk about how it's really enabled one of my clients to better collaborate with their clients and ultimately increase their business.
Yeah. So it sounds, at the end of the day, it sounds like it's all about the relationship, how well you know your customer so that you can address their pain points. Ted, are there kind of any best practices that you guys have seen as you're working with your channel partners to kind of help them extract this information from their customers and really devise a solution that works best to meet their solutions?
Well, I guess I would make two observations. Every partner we work with in the world is struggling with, how do I grow my revenue?
Mm-hmm.
How do I increase my revenue? And a great answer to that question is improve the security and productivity of your clients. And to me, there's a huge opportunity with business-grade file sync to go in there and weed out the security risks and to supplant these inadequate consumer-grade services with something that is secure and controllable. And that kills two birds with one stone. You're able to go in and really deliver on your promise to defend your clients' networks and their data privacy, and you're able to empower the productivity of their workforce. And frankly, there's a lot of partners that are not really driving this conversation aggressively enough into their installed base, and it's a huge revenue opportunity that's being missed, I would say. And the tools are really at your disposal today. Most partners we work with are running an RMM tool like LabTech, for instance, or a tool like OpenDNS, and you have very good visibility at the network layer and at the host layer of what services clients are running. And that's really your call list. If you want to figure out, which of your clients are best primed for a business-grade file sync solution, figure out the ones that are most heavily infected with consumer-grade file sync solutions. And that's an easy thing to do with your RMM tool. So those are kind of two observations I would make in terms of just thinking about the business opportunity and the overall mission of being an MSP. That's
great, and you actually point out a really good fact that you're right. Solution providers do have this information. It's really how well you are able to extract that information and use it to your and your customers' advantage. That's super important. And actually, I would love to kind of have you walk us through and tell us a little bit more about eFolder Anchor, because I know that it's the Anchor technology, no pun intended, for Nology's file sync solutions, and also because we've started getting some questions in from the audience about the technology, and I want to I'd like to basically have you kind of walk us through it first before we get to some of the questions, and hopefully we'll get some questions answered right away.
Yeah, Brendon has some excellent real-life case studies and deployment scenarios, but I think it is useful just to kind of set the stage a little bit and just give an overall picture of what eFolder's Anchor solution is. So let's kind of start with the user. What users want today is the ability to sync their content, their work product, and content they're working on with teammates inside of a company, sync and access that content from a variety of different devices. So they want to sync it from a corporate-issued laptop to maybe a home office PC or Mac. They want to be able to access content quickly from their mobile devices, whether it's Android, iOS, or a Windows Phone device, and they want to sync all that content to the cloud so that they can, basically get at their content and collaborate and work productively wherever they go. users also want to be able to share content securely with external parties. Some of the big challenges that users face is how do you share very large files? How do you share secure content that's highly sensitive, say like a tax return document or a W-2 statement that you're trying to get to your tax accountant? Content like that. Companies and professional services, for instance, have a lot of highly disparate and fragmented client bases, and how do you collaborate with those folks securely and on the fly? So there's a whole external party outside your company sharing need as well. So that's really what users want out of a solution. Now, the Anchor solution was built from the ground up for managed service providers, solution providers, and VARs, and it is a multi-tenant business-grade file sync solution. So on the slide in front of you, you see client A and client B depicted. And the basic, really important fundamental concept here is we designed this solution for managed service providers. So at the ground level, we're working with MSPs who have multiple clients, client A, B, client C, client D, and so on. And each one of those clients, as Brendon's going to show you in a couple of minutes, have unique requirements. And you want to have different and discrete security parameters set on these different clients and users. And you want to do it from a global perspective. You want to, the other big challenge that MSPs face is how to just control your labor costs. As you scale your client base, as you move from 1,000 users to 2,000 or 3,000 seats that you're managing, you've got to control your labor costs, and that really requires software and automation that gives you a global view of your user base and how to support them excellently and securely. So Anchor is multi-tenant. And then, as Brendon already mentioned, the Anchor solution can either be procured as a wholesale SaaS solution that includes the cloud storage in the eFolder cloud, or alternatively, partners can license just the software and run it in your own colo, provision your own storage, or alternatively, if you have larger clients that have really unique requirements where they want this sort of software running behind their own firewall, you can do that as well. So a very nimble solution. There's a lot of feature richness and depth in terms of MSP-specific capabilities that reside on this solution. But I think what's really useful is to kind of get into some of the concrete use cases to see how this can fit into an MSP business model.
Okay, great. So thanks for walking us through that, Ted. I do have one question that's come in from the audience that I wonder if we could go ahead and answer real quick, and then we'll move on to the case studies. And that is, Simon is asking, what level of detailed reporting is available on file access by users?
It's very fine-grained, and I don't know, Brendon, if this fits into any of your case studies, but it's down to the file level, and you have an audit trail of where every piece of content has been synced and has been accessed by a licensed user. So it's very fine-grained. And
when I talk about my construction client, my large construction client, I'll talk about this because there was actually some data theft that occurred with that client, and the Anchor audit logs were able to help us actually prosecute the person responsible.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's get to some of the case studies. Let's move on
then. Let's hear about those. It sounds like we got some juicy stories here. So I know you've got 5 different unique file sync deployments. So I'm just going to go ahead and advance the slide and let you start talking about the first one, which was the mortgage company that you alluded to earlier.
Absolutely. So the mortgage company was one that was using Dropbox extensively, and the unfortunate part of how they were set up was that almost every user was using their own independent, free Dropbox account. And I can understand the reason. Being a business owner myself, I understand the need for file sync and for backup, and people that don't have the guidance to be taken down the road of a solution like eFolder's Anchor, they end up putting together their own amalgamation to get by and make themselves more productive. So ultimately, the biggest thing was, as I mentioned, there was no insight into what people were doing with the data, where the data was going, how many devices the data was installed on or was downloaded to. And this is a large mortgage company with Social Security numbers and bank statements and bank account numbers and lots of data that is very sensitive. And so that being stored inside a free service like Dropbox is obviously a little bit bit scary. The second piece of it, and I think the cooler part of this case study, is really talking about how they're using the Anchor system now. So what was really, really interesting, they're a smaller mortgage company. They have about 15 brokers, and they were actually meeting with their clients, and then they were requesting that the clients send them all of their documents via email. Some of the clients, still very old school and would drop off a packet of all the information, but the majority of clients are emailing bank statements, they're emailing W-2s, they're emailing, copies of credit reports, and these sort of things to the mortgage broker over non-encrypted email. And so, as we all know, email that's non-encrypted is not a very safe way to send this sensitive data, and it was also not a very organized way for the mortgage company really to accept that data and to process it effectively, to send changes to their clients. Everyone knows the conundrum of, sending proposals to your client and they ask for a change, and then you've got to send the one that says updated version 2, updated version 3, updated version 4, and you're never all, necessarily looking at the same one. And so with Anchor's guest accounts, there's a really, really cool feature where the mortgage company can actually create a guest account for each one of their clients while they're going through the mortgage underwriting process, and then they can actually set up a folder structure in there for their clients that the clients get a temporary password, they log in, they change that password so it's very secure, and then that client can directly through the online portal with Anchor can upload those sensitive documents. So nothing is being sent by email, everything is being sent over a secure SSL connection. And then on the actual mortgage broker's desktop or laptop, not only are they getting screen pops when those files are uploaded, but also those are integrated right into Windows. So as soon as those are uploaded, they can open it up right from within the Windows file system, and they can start working through those documents, working within their mortgage processing software. And then when final documents are ready for review by the client, they can upload those into the file sync system, and then their clients can log in again through that portal, download those documents, sign them, things like that. So it's really made it a very, very streamlined process for their clients who are applying for mortgages, and it's really ended all of the risk of clients sending that secure information via email.
Wow, that's pretty cool, actually. I wish I had that when I had to do my mortgage. But okay, so your second one is a small appraisal firm?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think one of the reasons we chose Anchor over some of the other solutions that are out there in the market was because of the technology that they have called file server enablement. So file server enablement allows you to set up the Anchor agent on the file server of your client and actually create almost a hybrid type of environment. So this is really great for clients that are working with really large files. Maybe they're working with CAD files or they're working with design files, things that might take a couple extra minutes to sync over the product like Anchor. So clients need to be using those files. There's still a need for a file server on site in some cases. We can't use Anchor to completely remove the need for a file server, but what we can do that's really, really cool is we can put this agent on the server that basically syncs all of the changes in real time that are happening on the server with the Anchor product. So now when users are in the office working in CAD or working within their design programs, they have access to the very fast file server, but if they are out of the office and they need to pull down a file or if they need to go over a drawing with a client, they can, right from their iPad app, grab a copy of that file that's constantly kept up to date with what's happening on the server in the office. So what it really enabled them to do is to, instead of being out at a client site and having to call their office and say, hey, can you email me that drawing so I can show it to the client here on my iPad, they can log into the we call it the N Drive, log into the Anchor app right on their iPad, and they can pull up those files in real time. If there's a change that needs to be made, someone in their office can make that change, and 2 seconds later they can reopen it up, and they've got the latest copy of that file always at their fingertips. So it's a really good way for those clients that still do need a file server who are working with really large files to also get a lot of the mobility benefits of the Anchor product.
This also seems like it would be an effective kind of backup manager as well. In case you lose the file server, you've got you've got something in the cloud that's still up to date.
Yeah, that's a great point as well, and I apologize because that's really important, is that it also takes a traditional file server which doesn't have undelete capabilities, doesn't have revision history capabilities, and it adds those capabilities to a file server. So if they need to go pull a spreadsheet from 3 months ago, they can pull up what that spreadsheet looked like 3 months ago through the Anchor software, which is something they wouldn't traditionally be able to do on a standard, Windows file server.
So with this company then, what were they actually looking to, what problem did they have that they were looking to solve? Were they looking to speed up the network or their file uploads, or was it more of a disaster recovery type solution, or was it something altogether different?
Yeah, great question. The real problem that they were trying to solve was reliable remote access. So they were using really cumbersome VPN access, having a lot of issues with the sluggishness of a VPN to get to their files and get to their folders. And a lot of users didn't have access to the VPN, and there was no redundancy. If power went out in the office, there was no way employees could go home and work from home over the VPN, of course. So the really nice thing about the syncing technology on their server is that their users can work remotely without the need for a VPN. They can work remotely if power goes out in the office with the files that are currently stored inside the Anchor system as opposed to their file server. So not only does it give them more redundancy and reliability, but the main thing is it enables really, really easy remote access for the employees without the need for VPNs.
Great. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one then. Large construction company. This is the big juicy story you were telling us about.
Yeah, so I'll try and keep it as juicy as possible, but yeah, we work with quite a few construction, roofing, restoration type companies. This one in particular, I can't think off the top of my head exactly how many users they have on the Anchor platform, but the biggest challenge for them is that when they have a component to their company that's a sort of storm chaser. So if a big hailstorm comes through, Omaha, Nebraska, then they actually hire quickly and send a sales team down to Omaha, Nebraska, knock doors, sell roofs, work with the insurance companies to get those replaced as quickly as possible. And a lot of these sales teams are very fly-by-night, so they might work for one company with one storm. They might work for another company with another storm. Well, in this particular instance, the Anchor system really allows them to control what those employees have access to and also what they're doing with those files. So, definitely we can talk through this or answer questions, but the audit trails and audit logs inside Anchor are really, really awesome in that you can see, every time someone makes a change to a file, every time someone uploads something, every time someone deletes something, and there's no way around editing these logs or anything like that. So it's logged in there. If you delete a file, if you make a change to a file, its date, it's time-stamped, it's all done by user. So it's a really, really nice way to see what's actually going on. And so anyway, we had a call come into our help desk in sort of a crazy panic because all of a sudden a bunch of sales data was gone. And no one could figure out, where it went, what happened. And with a consumer-grade solution like a Dropbox, yeah, you might have the ability to restore the data, possibly, but you don't have any insight into, hey, why did it disappear in the first place? And so with Anchor, we were actually able to look through those logs and actually find the exact person that deleted it when they deleted it, and found out that that was a person that they had just let go and they hadn't shut off their access to Anchor in time, basically. And that person didn't realize that it could be quickly recovered. They went in, they said, we're going to screw these guys, and deleted a bunch of information. Well, our help desk, with 2 clicks, basically started the restore of all the data because we do have that undelete capability built into the software as well. So not only were we able to really, really quickly restore the deleted data, but we were also able to provide them with those audit logs showing exactly what user did it and date and time stamped with exactly what happened.
Wow, that audit trail is so important. I can
absolutely.
Sometimes it can mean the difference between life or death for a company, I can imagine.
Absolutely, and I mean this is one example, but another really quick one that isn't a case study in here, but and luckily there's been nothing malicious or any data breaches, but we have medical clinics as well using this technology. We have about a 50 provider mental health facility, and it's one of those things that we can see, if they need to know, hey, are people who aren't supposed to be accessing patient data accessing it, outside of scope and outside of HIPAA. They have a trail and proof that that's happening, and they're able to then discipline that person effectively.
Great. Interesting stuff. So I want to remind the audience that if you have a question for Brendon or for Ted regarding either any of these case studies or about the eFolder technology or about the file sync and share market in general, please go ahead and submit your questions at any time. We're going to go through these. I think there's 2 more case studies left, and then we'll take a couple more questions from the audience. We've gotten some really great ones in so far, so I definitely want to make sure that we have enough time to get to as many as we can. So, Brendon, let's take a look at this next one, the Sign Design Company. What'd you do for them?
Absolutely. So one of the really nice things about Anchor, however you decide to purchase it, whether it's as their software as a service solution, which is what we do, or whether it's deploying your own instance of Anchor in your own data center or office, the solution is fully brandable. And that brandable is also, the brandability, I should say, is able to be passed down past just your organization. So I think I've alluded to it just by slip of mouth a few times here, N-Drive, which is what we call our version of Anchor that we sell to our clients. And the great thing about Anchor is that it's completely custom brandable. So everything from the desktop icon to the system tray icon to the web portal and web access pages to the app installers, all of that stuff is completely custom brandable for your organization. So whether you want to call it N-Drive like we do or your own internal name, you're able to custom brand that and reinforce your brand rather than reinforce another company's brand. So you're selling, Dropbox for Teams or something like that. You're really reinforcing someone else's brand and not your own. But the really nice thing about that is that you're also able to allow your clients to custom brand their portals as well. And so instead of them seeing N-Drive, we have some clients that actually want to reinforce their brand to their clients. So I kind of mentioned the situation with the mortgage company where they're having their clients upload all of their mortgage docs and things like that. Well, in the case of the sign design industry, they're going back and forth on design specs, and then the customer's requesting some changes to the design, and then they're coming back with a new design. And so as a result, there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of images being uploaded and photos being uploaded and large files that don't send well by email, first of all. Email servers tend to reject large photos that are 100 megs or things like that. So it gives them a great place to upload those large photos. But the greatest part about it is we've allowed the sign company to custom brand the portal with all of their own logos, all of their own icons. So when their clients log in, it looks like an extension of them and their organization, even though it's being provided by us and ultimately provided by eFolder. So it really helps us to reinforce our brand, and then it also helps our clients who want to take advantage of the custom branding to reinforce their brand as well.
Great. Excellent. So let's take a look at this final case study here, and putting you guys under the spotlight now, huh?
Sure. Absolutely. So, as you have to drink your own Kool-Aid, and we not only do we sell the Anchor product, but as a company we live in the product. We don't have a file server as a company. Our entire company runs off of Anchor. And so all of our files, folders, all of our critical business documentation, all of that information is stored in the Anchor system. And like I said, we don't have a file server for our company at all. We're not on a domain. We do a lot of things kind of untraditionally, but our thing is we have to use the product if we're going to be out there convincing other people to use it. And one of the biggest ways that I love it, because I'm technical to a point, but I'm really in charge of managing the sales side of the business. And one of the really nice things about Anchor, I mean, how many people have gotten an email in Outlook and you open it up and it says, so-and-so has requested a read receipt. And what do you do when you get that? You say no, don't send them the read receipt, right?
Right.
And, or people get those emails, they're trying to recall the email, and you get these Exchange notifications that don't really apply if you're not on the same Exchange server with these people. And it's very intrusive. I kind of get annoyed, like, they want to know when I open the email. I'll respond when I respond. But the really nice thing about the Anchor product is it can all be done behind the scenes. So I pretty much don't send a sales proposal to a client without checking the read receipt option on that. So Anchor has a really, really cool plugin for Outlook, for companies that are Outlook users, that actually can attach files directly into your email composition that are essentially links to download the files from Anchor. So instead of, if you have to send a 300 meg file via email, you can send it via this plugin. The client gets a really nice link. They can click on it and they can download it. You don't have to worry about sending files. But the way that I use it most often is for proposals. I send the proposal to the client, and I get a read receipt in my email the second they download that proposal. And I've had opportunities where I emailed the proposal, the client looked at it, the client went silent for 6 months, couldn't get a hold of them anymore. I'm sure anyone who's in sales on this call has had this happen a million times. But then all of a sudden, 6 months later, I got a read receipt again that the client had re-downloaded my proposal 6 months later. So what did I do? I gave him a quick call and said, hey, just checking in. And, obviously it was fresh in his mind. He had some questions and ended up leading to being able to close the deal because I had the insight that he was actually looking at that. So it's really, really nice for the client engagement and just really knowing what the people that I'm sending emails to are doing. Are they actually opening it? Are they actually reading my contracts? Things like that is really nice to have that insight. And just like you can see on the screenshot, that's exactly what it looks like inside Anchor. There's options there. You can choose expiration dates. You can have public share, secure share with passwords. And then it's not in that screenshot, but underneath there's also typically an option to say, I want it to send me a read receipt when the client opens this. And then it will tell you the email they opened it from and things like that, which is really nice.
And I can't really see it on the screen. My screen's kind of small, but does it also list historical data on maybe if it's been opened more than once? Does it list every single time it's been opened?
It doesn't. It doesn't in that screenshot that you're seeing where you're actually doing the share. But I believe, and someone who is more well versed in this than me might be able to better answer. But I believe it is contained in the audit logs for that file.
Oh, okay, great. So that's great as well. Okay, great. So I've gotten some questions for you, Brendon, about some of these case studies, and so let's take a look at some of them. Jim asked, what technology are you using to block Dropbox, Google Drive, et cetera, things like that?
We don't block any of that. I mean, it's ultimately, if it's our company, that's something else. But we unless the client were to request us to do something like that, which typically they're not, we're not blocking anything in particular. But we can get alerts. So just like was mentioned earlier in the call, most RMM tools will allow you to do inventories, and they'll allow you to see what software is running on your users' computers. We use Continuum. Is who we use for our RMM. There's a lot of different options out there, but with Continuum you can set up alerts and say if we detect that Dropbox is running or if we detect that Google Drive is installed, then our help desk can get an alert and then typically pass that along to the sales team that can then reach out to that client and say, hey, I don't know if we've talked about it, NDrive, which is our version of Anchor, and kind of have that conversation when we see that happening. Or in clients that we already have sold that to, it allows us to have kind of another educational discussion because maybe there's a training issue that needs to be addressed, and that's why they're using Dropbox instead of using Anchor or something to that effect.
Okay, great. And Greg has a really interesting question. He says, we have a client who has a main site and 2 remote sites. They don't have any means to share files between the locations currently. Could we use the file server enablement to give remote locations access to the main location's shared file structure?
Absolutely, you can. And as I mentioned, all of this has a place for how it's deployed in different scenarios. But the majority of our clients, even the ones that are multi-site, most of the small business clients we work with who are just working with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDFs, we almost always eliminate the file server completely. And move them over to a 100% Anchor solution. But in the event that there is a need to have a file server at one location, you absolutely can use the NDrive file server enablement, and we've done it many times, to enable that server, sync all of that data with that server out to Anchor, and then share that data out with those remote sites. If they're just 1, 2, 3, 4 people at each of those remote sites, that's a great way for them to share that data without the need for site-to-site VPNs and all of that cumbersome nonsense.
Okay, great. And doing a quick time check, we're about 13 minutes before the top of the hour. So we have a time for one more question here, and then we'll move on a little bit more with the presentation. Ron is asking, in the event a server is infected with a virus that encrypts the data and the data is synced with eFolder, can you easily recover the data prior to the file being encrypted?
Yeah, and I can take this, or if anyone else wants to interject as well, but absolutely, and we've had this happen with the CryptoLocker virus with our clients. The nice thing is, and this kind of answers the next question that's in the list about versioning too, it looks like, the system does allow for versioning and revision history as well as undelete. So if you have a file that is encrypted with CryptoLocker, you can actually use the NDrive to revert back to the previous version of those files, right before something happened with the CryptoLocker virus, and then you're able to recover those files and restore them back to, so you don't have to pay, quote unquote, pay the ransom or lose the files. And then from a versioning standpoint, it's up to you and your clients how that's designed. We do a default of 90 days for our clients of both undelete and revision history. And if our clients want to do less, then we allow them to do less. And if they want to do more, we allow them to do more because our model is charging per gig. So the longer their revision history, the longer their undelete, obviously the more storage they're going to use. But we let our clients kind of choose the sky's the limit for how long they want those periods to be. But otherwise, you do have a revision history for every time that file is changed. A revision is saved in the system that can be reverted to within that retention window.
Great. So let's take a look at the next slide. We're talking about the key features of eFolder Anchor. Maybe Ted, you and Brendon can kind of bounce off each other here when we're talking about how the eFolder Anchor technology is obviously helping Brendon's company, and then some of the other features there that maybe haven't been highlighted so far.
Yeah, I think we've touched on virtually everything on this slide. But it really comes down to we're talking about a business-grade file sync solution, which has all of the unique audit and control and configuration capabilities that are so essential in the diverse types of client work environments you're going to see out there. It's a solution that is secure and gives the MSP or the client the utmost control of how file syncing and collaboration is occurring. There's backup capabilities built into the product and really rich administrative features that are often being used by the MSP. And the product is multi-tenanted, right? So just like we kind of started out the conversation today, and all of the data is encrypted in transit or at rest in the cloud environment and is HIPAA compliant, for instance, and eFolder issues business associate agreements to our partners. So those, those are the big check boxes, right, that you're going to want to look at and evaluate. And then really the next real big question is, what kind of money can I make deploying a solution like this?
So Brendon, maybe you can talk about that.
I sure can. So as I mentioned, we use the SaaS solution for Anchor. So we purchase a certain amount of licenses on an ongoing basis from Anchor for a fixed monthly rate. And then we also purchase storage from Anchor, so our clients' data is being stored in the eFolder data centers. And there, as was mentioned, there's also the opportunity for you to license the software and deploy it yourself on your infrastructure. But as we grow this this portion of our business right now, it makes more financial sense to use the software as a service model. But out there in the marketplace, I mean, there's a lot of sync technologies, everything from the consumer grade to some of the business grade ones that compete with Anchor. We chose Anchor as the best after vetting about 3 or 4, I believe, different file sync vendors. And as you can see in the big green circle on your screen, that number is pretty much correct. For each user that we bring on to our NDrive or Anchor system, it's typically about 70% margin for us.
Wow, that's great. So, let's talk dollars and cents then. I mean, obviously, it's one thing to have the 70% gross margin, but what is that? How does that translate into real money?
Yeah, well, I mean, let me. Oh, sorry, Brendon, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, the product itself, we do make a lot of money off of the product. It's not, where we make all of our money, but one of the really nice things is, just like for a lot of MSPs on this call, before we started selling this product, our number one way in the door for clients was hosted exchange. That was the easiest thing to get the client to give up on site and move to the cloud. And now we're finding that actually this product is our first way in the door, because businesses are consistently looking for easier ways to access their files remotely as business becomes so much more mobile. And so this is getting us in the door to sell virtual servers, virtual desktops, server management, help desk. So this is really our foot in the door that's enabling us to close some really, really large accounts.
That's a great insight, Brendon, and I think I think it's always key for managed service providers to have identified and isolated those wedge sort of services that can get you that first foot in the door. And there's such a crying need today for improved levels of collaboration and all the pain people have around remote access that there's a lot of pent-up demand for a service like this. And the question is probably obviously asked from everybody on the webinar, well, how do you make 70% gross margins? So, roughly speaking, depending on the volume you come in to eFolder, the volume of Anchor licenses you purchase, your wholesale cost on a per user per month basis is going to be anywhere from $5 to $10 per user per month. And that's going to be driven by your volume, which you negotiate out with your eFolder salesperson. And we, on the SaaS version of the product, we include 100 gigabytes per user per month, and that's pooled at the partner level, so you control the allocation of the storage quota on a per client or per user basis. And then we really see the floor on the street for a business grade file sync solution as $15 per user per month in an unmanaged arena. But really, most of the partners we work with today are delivering Anchor as a managed service, where you're doing all of the deployment, all of the security consultation and configuration. You're providing the help desk. You're providing the security incident response. You're doing the adds, moves, and changes. And if you're doing all those things, which you should, you can command a premium and charge a premium on the solution, so you can easily get away with $20 or $25 per user per month. And then really the other way we see partners being very successful is they basically say, look, this is a core function of our managed service offering, and they simply bake it in. They offer it as a standard capability to new clients. They offer it to their best clients for free today, quote unquote, and then at renewal time they'll increase the prices or increase the scope assessment on a renewal of a managed service agreement and increase and recapture the revenue there. Or, as in the case of Brendon's example, they're really going out there and using this as a wedge solution and going out there and delivering a managed service offering that can start solving the problems for the client right away, and then it allows you to move on and get more of that share of wallet as the client relationship evolves. So that's kind of some comments on kind of how the economics work. And then, before we've got about 5 minutes for Q&A, let me just finish with a kind of a call to action for everybody. If you are interested in downloading a free trial of the product, you can go to anchorworks.com/download and download your free trial there. And you're able to, on the free trial, elect to either go with the SaaS or public cloud version of the product or the private cloud. And with that, Charlene, why don't we try to tackle a couple more questions before the top of the hour?
Yeah, great. I think we have time for 2, maybe 3 questions. Nathan is asking, is there a remote destruction technology in your product or even in the industry, such as like, if you think of MDM to wipe a phone remotely?
Yes, the product supports what we call remote wipe, and remote wipe can be done on a fat client or on a mobile device or tablet.
Great. Okay, let's see. Danushka is asking, can the solution be connected with Active Directory?
The answer to that is yes. Active Directory provides a single sign-on authentication experience to your clients. There's additional functionality down the road with kind of server permissions, inheritance, and all that sort of thing. But today, the main use of Active Directory or LDAP is for a very simple single sign-on experience for the users.
Okay, great. Let's see, we've got one here from Devin who's asking, can you store CAD files, and is there a file size limitation with Anchor?
You can save CAD drawings, and there are some file size limits, but it's mostly based on licensing, and if you come in at a reasonable level, there's no file size limits.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay, Don is asking, apart from restoring one file or one folder, is there a way to restore everything or a broad set of folders to a state from a prior day? So it sounds like a full restore.
Yeah, I mean,
Go ahead, Brendon.
Sorry, Ted. I can speak to that because that goes right back to the construction company example that I spoke to earlier. The technology does have the ability to restore at the folder level, to kind of do a general restore all of everything that's been deleted within that retention window that I talked about. And it also lets you do date range restore. So if you know that something was deleted between these 3 dates, then you can actually go into your system and you can restore all the deleted files from a certain date range.
Okay, great. I think we have time for one more question, and William got it in right under the deadline. So he's asking, can you specify different file extension exclusions by account?
Yes, you can. Yeah, I mean the two. I mean that's a very common configuration choice you would make if you wanted to prohibit certain file types from being in a sync arena, if you will, or syncing at all in a client organization. And then, the other big dimension of control from an initial configuration is a lot of partners will make decisions in consultation with their clients on what kind of devices you're going to allow the users to sync to. You may say, well, they can sync from their corporate issued laptop to their iPhone, but that's it, not to a home-based workstation or Mac. So all those sorts of configuration options are available, and they'll be driven by the security requirements of your clients.
Okay, great. Well, that is about all the time that we have today for today's webcast. I would like to extend a special thank you to my guests, Ted Hulsy of eFolder and Brendon Liner of Nology. It was a great discussion, and we had so many questions left over. So if we did not get to your question, please know that these will be saved, and you guys should be contacted by Nology and or eFolder post-event. So just keep a lookout. As always, if you have any questions about Penton Technology and its many, many offerings, please just drop us a line to any of the folks you see on the screen. We're all happy to help you. But for now, I'm Charlene O'Hanlon, and I thank you so much for joining us. I'm signing off. Thanks. Be safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.